I've been playing and enjoying Saros for the last 2 weeks, and in this video we'll take a look at how I earned the platinum after just under 21 hours. Saros was one of my most anticipated games this year. I was a little late to the party in trying Returnal as I felt discouraged by the roguelike elements and how chaotic the gameplay seemed. I am someone who can barely walk and chew gum at the same time. How was I going to shoot enemies while dodging crazy glowing orbs? But something about the game just clicked for me, and it ended up being one of my favorite games. I even went on hunting down all the randomized collectibles for its platinum. Saros is a wonderful follow-up to Returnal. It is much more accessible for someone who may be interested in trying the game, as the runs are shorter and you feel like you're constantly making progress, even if you die and have to start over. If you're interested in pursuing the platinum yourself, know that Saros is much easier and removes all the RNG that made Returnal's platinum so frustrating. You'll unlock permanent upgrades in a skill tree that will help you overcome some of the difficulty spikes. I feel like the weapons in Returnal were a bit cooler than what is available in Saros, but I did eventually find something that fit my playstyle after I learned how to use them. The Chakram in particular was a lot of fun and had a unique way to play depending on which variant you found. The boss fights are super cool, and the thrill of defeating one on your first attempt is unmatched. There were some that I was stuck on for a while, but all it took was one run where everything came together and I was able to take them down eventually. I'll be honest, I do not completely understand what the story was about in Saros, and I didn't in Returnal either. I was here for the gameplay, and that part of the game was awesome. I hope they release some additional content, maybe something similar to the Tower of Sisyphus in Returnal, so that I have a good reason to come back to this one. Saros has a total of 45 trophies, many of which you'll unlock naturally as you play through the game. I had earned 35 on my way to finishing the story, and earned the final 10 in the post-game as I intentionally pursued what I had remaining. Let's invert our y-axis and take a look at how I did it. At the end of the tutorial and introductory area of Saros, you'll find yourself up against the Consort mini-boss. While I feel like I held my own pretty well against it, I was still getting used to the bullet hell nature of the game and got hit by enough stuff I wasn't paying attention to and died for the first time, popping the trophy Come Back Stronger. Alright, come back stronger. I guess we're trying that again. At the start of the game, you only have access to 3 weapon types. 2 are rifles and 1 is the hand cannon. Here I found an Eruptor hand cannon and did a scientific experiment of shooting a nearby wall to see which one I might like better. I elected to go with the hand cannon because it made a prettier explosion. In my very first encounter with it, I earned the trophy Enforcer for damaging 7 hostiles within 5 seconds with the hand cannon. Lucenite is the yellow glowing orbs you pick up along the ground and are also dropped when you kill enemies. As you pick them up, you'll be leveling up your proficiency, which makes higher level weapons available to you. I swapped my hand cannon out for a higher proficiency level smart rifle, which conveniently has ammo with auto hit. As long as you're aiming in the general direction of an enemy, these bullets will seek out that enemy. Landing my 50th consecutive shot with this rifle earned me the Relentless trophy, which wasn't too difficult to do with this elite with a larger health pool. At the end of the first biome, Shattered Rise, I faced the Prophet. I dropped in and took him down on my first attempt because I'm built different. But my confidence didn't last long. At least for now, I was awarded the Prophet trophy for defeating this first Overlord. In the next biome for the Ancient Depths, I found myself overwhelmed and got to test out the Second Chance feature after dying and being revived. This upgrade works once per cycle, but there are ways later to replenish it mid-cycle. For now, I'll take the Second Chance trophy and move on. In addition to your main weapon, you have a secondary power weapon that uses up a separate resource you gain when absorbing blue orbs with your shield. Here I replaced my current power weapon with the Dispiritor. Using and damaging 5 hostiles simultaneously with it popped the trophy Atrophy.
That shortcut you found back to passage.
Enemies with this red bubble shield around them can only be dispatched with a melee attack. Dashing in and killing this one mid-air gave me the Approach Vector trophy. As the game went on, I was getting more comfortable using my shield. As I mentioned before, the blue orbs can be absorbed to increase your power meter. Yellow orbs can be absorbed to avoid damage, but create a corruption debuff that lowers your maximum health. This can be removed by using your power weapon. Red attacks cannot be absorbed or dashed through, so you just have to get out of the way of them until you learn a new ability later. Using my shield to absorb my 2021st projectile unlocked the Break the Cycle trophy, which was a nice little callback to the year Returnal was released. I eventually found my way to the overlord of this area, Bastion. I found this fight to be a lot of fun. I did my best to avoid the yellow orbs and absorb the blue orbs so I could launch my Prominence power weapon at him. I also used the jump pads that were littered all over the ground to jump high enough to avoid other attacks. Eventually, I worked my way through all 3 of his health bars and took him down on my first attempt for this trophy, Bastion.
Any status update on Jerome?
Back at the passage, which acts as the main hub in Saros, the banyan tree on the top floor will occasionally open up and progress the story. Entering it for the first time gave me the Strange is the Night trophy. The next biome was the Shattered Descent, where I received a new permanent upgrade, the Grapple. This was an essential tool in Returnal, and I was happy to see it back in Saros. I use the DualSense Edge controller and I try to map face buttons to the rear paddles so I don't have to remove my fingers from the sticks. With the grapple unlocked, I decided to update my controller profile to remap my new grapple. It was time to say goodbye to my high guard profile. Rest in peace, we hardly knew thee. I make it to the overlord of this area in my first run through it, but I don't have as much success against him as I did the previous 2 bosses. He gets some hits on me immediately and triggers my second chance. I try to keep my distance from him, but he closes in on me quickly. I try to use my shield to absorb some of his attacks, but I release it just a moment too early and the last orb hits me and takes me out. I eventually make my way back to him, but I don't have a whole lot of confidence going into the fight as I'm low on health. I have corruption on me, and I'm using a hand cannon instead of a rifle. I decide to just see if I can use this as a chance to learn the fight a little bit better. I again try to keep my distance when I can. When he starts doing his leap attacks, I use the grapples that are around the arena to pull me away since they make you immune to damage while using them. I take a hit that leaves me with a sliver of health, and I lock in from that point and chip away at him with my pistol and power weapon. I get a final shot on him and take him out, earning the Rhabdom trophy.
Oh my god. I can't believe I got that.
I also finished the fight with the maximum level of corruption on my health bar, so jumping down the ledge completed this biome and gave me the War Within trophy.
I need to get across to the city. Now.
Bridge interface.
The next area was the Blighted Marsh, where we find the crossbow for the first time. I'll be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of this one. It ended up being fun to use at much higher proficiency levels, but at low levels I just didn't care for it. The alt fire for this one sends out multiple homing projectiles. Hitting 3 hostiles at once was all I needed for the All Shall Bow trophy. I had started getting into a rhythm with the combat of absorbing blue orbs to build up my power meter and then launching a larger attack back at the enemies. In this section I had absorbed just enough to hit 3 power bars, then defeated an enemy with my power weapon to trigger catch and release. Blighted Marsh was the first time in the game I felt like I was hitting a wall. I was struggling to make my way to the end and kept dying in the process. It took me a couple days of failed attempts before I decided to go back to previous biomes to earn some Lucenite and fill out the upgrade tree a little. I also decided to turn on a Carcosan modifier for the first time. You can apply modifiers to your game that will either make it easier or harder. The idea is you need to balance the two in order to assist in the way you want to play, but there is an option in the settings to turn off the balanced requirement. I personally don't like to mess with these types of things in games, but completing biomes using these modifiers is required for a trophy. I decided to turn on a modifier that made little impact on the game by increasing my Lucenite pickup area so that I can start making progress towards the trophy without taking away from the challenge of the game. I finally got to the point that I could consistently meet the overlord of this area, Legion. I didn't have much success on my first couple of attempts. I died immediately after getting to his second phase the first time, and while I felt like I was doing better the second time, I couldn't quite get the parry timing down for the red attacks and ate a few too many of them. On my third attempt, I went in with a smart rifle, which made it easy to focus on dodging all his other attacks and letting the homing bullets do their thing. I was thankfully able to lock in even though I was close to death and finished him off for his trophy. In the next area, the Desecrated Fortress, I got myself trapped in a corridor with enemies trying to overwhelm me. I was trying out a new power weapon, the Nova Lance, when I managed to hit an enemy just right and defeat a hostile using a ricochet Nova Lance slug for the Angle of Attack trophy. I didn't find myself having much success with the Nova Lance weapon, so I eventually swapped back to Prominence, which in my opinion is the best option. There was a group of enemies along a wall, so launching my Prominence attack at them defeated 5 with a single blast and earned me the Broadside trophy. The Overlord for the Desecrated Fortress is a super cool fight. I thought I was doing alright in my first attempt, but I was still learning the fight patterns. I also stupidly fell off the platform to my death. My second attempt was much better, and I was able to finish him off with an overdrive attack and receive the Architect trophy.
Nice. Winning. Second try.
Where is she?
This boss was also the end of Act 1, and I unlocked the Never Let Go trophy.
Hello?
The next biome was Acolytes Haven, which had the final main weapon to unlock, the Chakram. As I mentioned before, I enjoyed using this gun later in the game, but it is difficult to get used to at the beginning. This first variant lets you shoot discs that embed themselves in enemies and did damage over time. You could then hold down the alternate fire button to rev up those discs to deal increased damage. Shortly after picking up the weapon, I had fired it into a group of enemies and earned the Vicious Circle trophy, damaging 4 hostiles with the Chakram within 2 seconds. A few minutes later, I was confronted by my 10th Alpha hostile, indicated by the shield icon above his health bar. But I absolutely melted him with this new weapon in just a few seconds and was given the Carcosan Conqueror trophy. The boss for this area is probably my favorite fight of the game. Shepard has large tentacles that you have to destroy before he opens himself up to start eating away at his actual health bar. Even though I wasn't successful on my first attempt, he is thankfully a pretty easy boss to get back to. On my 4th attempt, I went in there with my Chakrams, and I was able to just stick him with the disc and hold down the alt fire button and drain his health bar. This let me just focus on dodging everything else. Taking him down gave me the Shepherd trophy.
Oh my god.
The Cathedral was the next section where we received our final power weapon, the Illumine. A small group of enemies conveniently bunched up on a platform, so when I hit them with it, I was able to damage 3 of them simultaneously for the Radiance trophy. On this cycle, I also dispatched enemy number 1995 to earn the Bullet Paradise trophy. As your proficiency increases, you'll unlock additional trait slots that can be rolled on guns for a maximum of 5. Using every variant and trait of a weapon is needed for the Soltari R&D trophy. If you find a gun full of traits, do yourself a favor and pick it up and just shoot it a couple of times to make progress towards this trophy. It should unlock in time as you play. I unlocked this trophy right as I began the boss fight for this area against the Priestess, only to be killed immediately. This is another super cool boss fight with very different phases as you fight her. I did die a few times, but on my third attempt I was successful. The thing to keep in mind is that you have to prioritize the tuning forks that spawn on separate platforms in the later phases so that you can then damage her. Once I focused on those while dodging all the attacks, I was able to take her down relatively easily and pop the Priestess trophy. Finishing off the Priestess and heading back to the passage completed Act 2 for the Into the Yellow trophy.
Not here. Not again.
This unlocked the final area of the game, the Yellow Shore. This place is tough, but I really liked it. You have to start fresh here every time. You cannot build up your power in previous biomes and bring it into this zone. It has good enemy variety and a ton of Halcyon, another currency type you need to unlock specific nodes in the upgrade tree. I found this to be the best place to attempt to earn the Fall from Grace trophy. In order to do this, you must use the environment to eliminate a hostile without actually shooting it. This is done by parrying red attacks towards flying enemies as they are over the edge of the platform. You may have to hit them twice to fully stun them and cause them to drop to their death. The Countermand trophy is also earned by parrying red attacks to stagger 2 enemies simultaneously. Once a couple enemies bunch up, it should be relatively easy to get this if you can time your parries right and target them.
Oh, nice.
In this area, I had also picked up my 70th Halcyon for the trophy Eclipse's Gift. I also grabbed my 20th Halcyon specifically from the Yellow Shore for the trophy Never Enough. The final boss of the Yellow Shore and of the game is the King. It took me several tries to actually beat him, but the time I walked in with the Myriad Chakram and just started bouncing discs off his face was enough to take him down. Unfortunately, the audio for my recording didn't get captured for this fight, but to give you an idea on what it sounded like, it was something like this. Beep, 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 beep. Taking down the King earned me the trophy of his name. Even with the final act complete, there was still more to do. I followed the objectives to change my path by first going to the Shattered Descent, then the Blighted Marsh, and finally the Cathedral to search Nitya's lab underneath. With all these completed, the final Banyan tree sequence was unlocked for the Shattered Glass trophy. The final step was to go back through the Yellow Shore and defeat the King again, but this time it was a harder version. I didn't have too much trouble and was able to take him down on my first attempt. Full disclosure, I had been using some of the modifiers at this point in the game that increased my damage, so this is likely a harder fight if you do it straight up. This time, instead of finishing him off, we leave him defeated on the ground and walk through the doorway behind him to complete the epilogue and earn the Let Go trophy. With the story complete, it was now time to run some more cycles with specific goals in mind. First up was completing a biome without using the shield. This one was pretty easy, you just have to break the habit of using your shield to absorb damage. I decided to just start a cycle from the very beginning. After taking down the Prophet with relative ease, I unlocked the Vincible trophy when I jumped down to the next area and triggered the end of the biome. I continued into the Ancient Depths area and searched until I could find a shotgun. The Overlord here is a perfect target to achieve the Spread the Cost trophy, which requires you to land 7 consecutive shotgun blasts with 100% pellet accuracy. He's a nice big target that you can get up close to. I sprinted right underneath him and just kept unloading the shotgun until the trophy popped. Throughout your cycles, you'll find augments that provide a permanent upgrade. The greenish-yellow ones provide an increase to your health pool. Collecting 20 of these unlocks the reinforced Carapace trophy. You'll come across them often enough that you shouldn't have to really hunt them down, but they are rewards for completing Nightmare Gates if you want to prioritize those. You learn an ability called Overdrive in the third biome, the Shattered Descent. Once charged up, you can nuke an area which will one-shot most enemies and guarantee they drop Aether to heal you back up. To earn the trophy OverDriven, you must kill 30 enemies with this ability in a single cycle. I had just started from the beginning and used Overdrive whenever it was available on a group of enemies and eventually unlocked this. If you're having trouble building up this gauge, you can upgrade how quickly it charges in the skill tree to make it easier to pull this off. There are a total of 15 primary weapons and 4 power weapons. Using and defeating 25 hostiles with each of them is needed for the full arsenal trophy. I had a hard time figuring out which weapon I still needed kills with, as I was stuck at 466 for the longest time. My first recommendation is to go into your databank and look at what weapons you have the lowest data encryption unlocked for, as it likely means you didn't use those weapons. I had pinned the trophy so I had quick access to it. Anytime I came across a gun I wasn't sure if I used much, I'd get a couple kills then check the trophy to see if it made any progress. In the end, it turned out to be the Nova Lance power weapon that I had rarely used during my playthrough. I picked it up, used it on the first group of enemies I saw, then checked the trophy and saw the number going up. Using it on the next group of enemies got me to 475 total kills for the trophy unlock. The Second Chance ability revives you once during each cycle. This ability can be recharged by either completing a Nightmare Gate or if you use the Carcosan modifier to have it recharge after defeating an Overlord. I went the modifier route and rushed the Shattered Descent boss and purposely died during the fight to trigger my second chance, then quickly killed him to recharge it. I then stood around and let a couple weaker enemies kill me again and trigger another second chance. Then finally let them finish the job for my third death and the fatal Triptych trophy. The next thing I wanted to tackle was the Untouchable trophy. This is likely the most difficult trophy to obtain. There was a glitch that would automatically pop this one, but I knew I wanted to get it in a legitimate way. For this trophy, you must complete a biome without taking any kind of direct hit or losing adrenaline. I felt like the Shattered Descent was the best biome to run my attempts on. You could skip most of the enemies and just rush for the Overlord, where Rhabdom only had a single health bar compared to the other bosses. I found I had more success with the Smart Rifle, so I could run and gun a little better and build up my overdrive gauge to make the final fight quicker. You have to be careful of the flying enemies because they will follow you through the different sections and will even wait for you right outside the boss room to try and attack you once you kill him and ruin your run. I was able to get my runs down to around 4 minutes, so even if I failed, it wasn't a huge loss and I could try again quickly. What you're seeing right now is my successful attempt, so I'm going to let it play out in full so you can see how I earned the Untouchable trophy. Next up were Nightmare Gates. There are 7 of these in total, 1 in each biome except the Yellow Shore. They are guaranteed to be in every cycle and can be found in the same location. They are indicated on the map with a skull icon and exclamation point. Some of these can be challenging and have modifiers automatically applied to them. The game doesn't tell you which ones you've completed, so you'll have to keep track for yourself. There were 3 that I was missing, which I found in the Desecrated Forest, the Ancient Depths, and finally the Cathedral. Finishing off the last enemy in the Cathedral Nightmare Gate unlocked the Nightmare Strands trophy. This left one final trophy between me and the Platinum. Carcosan Cartographer asks that you embark on 33 expeditions with a Carcosan modifier. As I said before, I had my Shattered Descent run down to about 4 minutes. I had also left the Lucenite pickup Radius modifier on for most of my playthrough, and I had 19 of these runs completed already. I ran the cycle over and over for the next hour to eventually complete my 33rd and unlock the Carcosan Cartographer trophy and also be rewarded the Platinum. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a ton of fun going for the Saros Platinum, and I hope seeing how I earned my trophies may have helped you on your own journey. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the game if you have had a chance to play it. I'm also curious what weapons you were drawn towards to fit your playstyle. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel.